Now, let's turn to this issue that slightly frustrated me. Not because I'm an ex-Tory MP, I'm just kind of, it seems process focus. A government plan for a new definition of extremism is being worked on. It's going to be published, we're told, on Thursday. Now, the Cabinet have yet to approve it, and some are saying that this is ostensibly been designed, well, not ostensibly, I think it is, to deal with extremism. For example, is Islamic extremism, but not exclusively that. But others are saying that legitimate concerns, such as those who may have opposed, and still do, even though it's law, gay marriage, or concerned about transgender rights, could get caught up and be defined as extreme and therefore presumably suffer some penalties. Personally, I have a slightly bigger issue is, what is the point behind this extremism? Why don't we just get on, find the extremists and lock them up, or whatever may be the case? Nothing is that simple, I'm sure. So to help me navigate this, I'm pleased to welcome Dr. David Lowe. He is a Senior Research Fellow in Terrorism at Leeds Beckett University and author of Policing Terrorism, as well as a former Detective Sergeant with the Merseyside Police. Quite a CV there. Welcome to the show, David.
Good afternoon, Nick.
Thank you. I bow to experts that I seem to have been absolutely peppered with today. My initial concern with this, though, is the Conservatives seem to be getting themselves in a bit of a tizzy over creating a process to define extremism, and I'm not really sure how that's going to help. What do you think the thinking is behind this?
I think recent events, certainly since the 7th of October, and what we've been seeing certainly with the Islamist and the far-right issues post that time, may have triggered this to review and have a look again at the definition of terrorism. It isn't a legal one, Nick. It isn't in a piece of statute. It's
No.
over a policy document.
And it's meant to define, it's defined to stop the government themselves sending funds to organisations. That often happens in grants and things like this, basically, is my understanding. It does seem a very insular document.
Yeah. I mean, there's one advantage that maybe come from this. We might get rid of the phrase of fundamental British values. That's been problematic over the last 10 years because the question is, what are British values? And I think if we went around the country, we'd all have a different view on what British values are. I think if they'd had like constitutional values, would have been a better phrase. But
we have a very vague constitution anyway, don't we?
I know. We're very good. We've been very good at writing other people's, and we have an unwritten one. But we're saying that, to be fair, Nick, I think, although we have an unwritten constitution, you look at the other statutes and you look at the other processes and protocols, you know, it's a pretty workable and flexible constitution that we've got. But I think that would help certainly from a legal perspective. And I've always felt sorry for those in the legal profession, and certainly the judiciary, trying to put some form of meat onto what is not a statutory definition. But my other concern is what you were saying. Looking at what is proposed, and if it is right, it's widening that scope of extremism. It's you know, anyone who undermines institutions or values.
Well, it says right, undermines the right. Yeah, sorry, there's a bit of a delay on the line, so bear with me. It says particularly they will challenge anything that promotes an ideology that undermines the rights or freedoms of others. I just about these days, everyone's so polarised. If I take a different view to them, they'll enlist the Human Rights Act to protect their rights or something. It seems very, very open to misinterpretation or misuse.
Yeah, I think this is my concern. Another example I was going to throw in there was the abortion debate and those who are anti-abortion.
Very good example.
You know, we could keep giving other examples. I think, you know, we've got to look at, we know where the main threats are.
Yeah.
Violent Islamism, violent far right, violent far left. I mean, there was...
but on a different scale, don't you think? Because I know we all feel obliged when we talk about Islamist extremism to talk about far-right extremism, but one is like a molehill to a mountain at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know, this is where we have to be very, very careful. I mean, for example, with these the demonstrations that we're seeing, there's a legitimate voice in there. There's a legitimate issue that seems to be getting lost because you've got extremists tagging onto legitimate protest, and that's what's getting the focus. And that's my concern. Is these are fundamental values: freedom of expression, freedom of assembly. And I was thinking historically when I was waiting to come on, I was thinking people like William Wilberforce. In his day, he would have been seen as extremist, wanting to abolish slavery. I mean, we could give other examples in that historical time. So this is where we've got to be careful, Nick, that we don't suppress freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, totally. But we look at what the nub is that we're trying to deal with.
Okay, let me give you sorry, again, that delay's messing us up slightly, but let me give you an example. You see, I think once we've prescribed, say, a terrorist group, such as Hamas, that are in the news now, so it is a terrorist group, I could understand a decision to say that if you are out there either chanting support for them, or you support them, or you send money to them, that's an offence as far as I'm concerned. Now, I thought we had laws to cover that anyway.
Yes, we do. They're under you've got the Terrorism Act 2000, Terrorism Act 2006 there. You've got Section 1 of the 2006 Act glorifying acts of terrorism. You've also got support, and under the 2000 Act, you've got the offence of supporting a prescribed organisation and funding a prescribed organisation under the 2000 Act. These are serious offences, Nick. I mean, this goes beyond hate speech, hate crime. You're on to the next level, and these carry potentially large custodial sentences. And this is, and that has to be dealt with. And this is the issue with extremism. Let's focus on extremism that's inciting hatred or glorifying or promoting violence. That's got to be the focus, not someone who has a view that's not mainstream, a view that can be seen on a fringe, but it's not inciting hate and it's not glorifying or promoting violence. That differentiation, I think, is so important in this issue.
What do you think? I mean, I'm not sure. And it's probably me being a bit dim here. I mean, do you think it's necessary what the government are proposing here? Because all parties, as I understand it, are kind of, warm to it. It's the Conservatives who are having a bit of an internal battle about it.
Yeah, no, I think it's important that we assess what is meant by extremism, because we also, well, for Britain, because it's not in Northern Ireland, the Prevent strategy, and Prevent has undergone a recent review with William Shawcross. Its aim is to stop vulnerable people being drawn towards terrorism. So we need to know what extremism is, and there are different categories. I mean, and they're also looking at, as I said, if it's inciting hatred or glorifying or promoting violence. One that's been looked at but is not seen yet is involuntary celibacy. That's caused
involuntary
celibacy. The incel movement, yeah. And Canada recently arrested a young male who murdered a couple of females. It's a misogynistic ideology, and they are trying to see if they could count this for a terrorism offence, not just for murder. Is it terrorist-related murder? So
why? Sorry, this is ignorance. I'm coming at this call, but why do that? If he's been charged for murder, that should bang him up for long enough, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it's sentencing factors, I think, Nick. It's like here as well. I mean, if there's a person who's been arrested for murder that's from a terrorist incident, it's sentencing factors. So it's the length of sentence. For example, the brother of the Manchester bomber, you look at the minimum sentence he has to serve because of that. Now, that's the important factor. Yes, for murder, it's life, but it's then what the court can then do on the sentence.
Well, there's an easy answer to that. Life could mean life, but I suspect we may or may not agree on that. But let me just ask you, completely unrelated, and you may know nothing about this, so forgive me. In Liverpool, we've just been talking about, and I'm asking you as a former police officer here, we've been talking at length about thefts from shops particularly, and we've heard some pretty distressing tales. In Liverpool, I know, they're trying an experiment where they are going to use a product which is called a 100 selector DNA intruder spray kit. The idea being that premises have these spray kits, so if someone is leaving a shop or caught trying to steal and makes a run for it, this spray will effectively, if you spray them or they get sprayed by it from somewhere in the shop, it allows for that transfer of information, that DNA, to be identified for up to a 2-week period. So if they ever track this person down. Is this just technological wishful thinking to look like action, or do you see any merits in it?
Well, obviously, I will say from the start, I'm not a forensic scientist. I have knowledge on that. I'm aware of DNA, obviously, and having served when DNA really came in and took over fingerprint ID, I suppose, the importance of it. Yeah, we're looking at and certainly small businesses, like the corner shops and so on.
Yeah.
In areas, even if it's what we would term a small value theft, say compared to the major high street, it's a major theft to that business because of their balance, or their economic balance that they've got to deal with. So we are looking at some action being taken. I don't know. So long as
well, I think you're as baffled as me. The idea, I think, is it leaves a unique DNA mark, they call it, that is matched to the bottle. So therefore, if you catch them in 2 years, you can put them at the scene of the crime. I can kind of understand the logic behind it. But the fact of the matter is, this during this show, 1,800 shops or businesses will have been robbed. Our shoplifting is taking place at a rate of 600 an hour, and they seem to be doing it without fear of accountability. Listen, thank you very much for joining me to talk on the substantive issue of extremism. That was Dr. David Lowe, Senior Research Fellow